All right, let's get right into it. Today we're exploring a concept that's fascinated people for literally centuries, the third eye. Now, it's often surrounded by a whole lot of myth and mystery, but we're going to peel all that back and get to the heart of what it really means.
I mean, when you hear third eye, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's this idea of some kind of secret power, right? Predicting the future, seeing auras, maybe even reading minds. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
But the spiritual teacher Osho, he had a totally different take on it. He cut right through all that sensationalism to show us something way more profound, way more transformative, hiding within this ancient symbol. So let's unpack his view. First things first, we've got to get clear on what the third eye is not. To really get what Osho was talking about, you have to toss out that idea of a literal physical eyeball sitting in your forehead. Instead, think of it as a really powerful metaphor. So what is it then? Well, according to Osho, the third eye isn't some biological thing. It's a symbol. It represents our capacity for inner vision, the ability to perceive a truth that our five ordinary senses just can't pick up on. And that's the key right there. This isn't about seeing more things in the outside world. It's about opening an inner doorway to a totally different state of being, a higher awareness of life itself.
Which of course brings us to the big question. If it's a doorway, how in the world do you open it? How does this inner vision actually awaken?
Now, Osho's first point here is absolutely crucial. This is not some project for your ego. You can't just decide you're going to achieve it through sheer willpower. In fact, any attempt to force it or pry it open is exactly what keeps it shut. It's all about surrender, not struggle. So what's the path? Well, it's gentle, it's patient. It really starts with just embracing silence, stepping away from all that mental chatter. And from that quiet space, you start to cultivate a simple awareness of the present moment. And if you do that, it just happens. The third eye begins to open all on its own, completely naturally.
So what happens when this inner vision actually wakes up? Well, it's not just some cool new feature. It fundamentally changes how you perceive everything. Think of it like a complete operating system upgrade for your consciousness.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Our two physical eyes, right? They're basically built to see a world of opposites. They split everything into dualities, me versus you, light versus dark, good versus evil. But the third eye, it sees beyond all that separation. It perceives the underlying unity, the oneness that connects everything. And the result of that shift, well, it's a total game changer. Life stops looking like a battlefield of opposing forces and starts looking like a harmonious whole. You start perceiving from a place of connection, not conflict. Okay, so this all sounds very deep and philosophical, but what's the real-world impact? How does seeing with this inner vision actually change a person's life, their character?
And here's the beautiful part. Osho says you don't have to work for these things. They are the natural byproducts of this awakening. A deep sense of intuition just shows up. Clarity cuts through all the confusion. And because you see the oneness in everyone, compassion becomes your default response. Inner joy, a feeling of connection, they just naturally start to bubble up.
So what's the bottom line? That feeling of being isolated, of wondering what the point of it all is, that just starts to dissolve. It gets replaced by this deep, unshakable feeling of belonging and purpose. And this brings us to maybe the most important distinction of all. Remember how we started with that popular idea of psychic powers? Well, Osho steers us towards something much, much bigger than that.
He was so clear on this. The whole point isn't to become some special person who can do cool tricks for an audience. To go looking for the third eye for that reason is to completely miss the point. In fact, it just feeds the very thing this whole process is meant to dissolve.
Because here's the real purpose. The true function of the third eye isn't to add a new power. It's to dissolve something, the ego. That constant sense of a separate, isolated me. See, when you start to see the world as one, that I that feels apart from everything else, it just can't survive. So when the ego takes a step back, what fills that space? It's not arrogance from having special powers. It's the exact opposite. It's genuine humility that comes from knowing you're part of this vast, interconnected whole. And that is the foundation of real, higher wisdom. So we'll leave you with this to really think about. If you strip away all the myths, this is the heart of Osho's teaching. What would actually change in your life, right here, right now, if you started to see the world not as a bunch of separate pieces, but as a single, unified whole?